You've experienced firsthand some pretty interesting things with your patients. They talk to people that aren't in the room.
That's true.
Welcome to the Perfect Society, where Republicans and Democrats both get their way, and so does everybody else. Visit everybody'shappy.com and the Perfect Society social media, YouTube, and podcast to learn how you can help build a perfect society in less than 2 years. I'm Curt Derby. Thank you for joining me. Today is part of our In the Shadows series, where we talk to people who are not featured in mainstream media and often not even in social media. I have with me today DeAnn Jansen. DeAnn, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. I'm really interested in the content we're going to talk about. You have a lot of interesting stories. You are a hospice social worker, and you have witnessed many interesting things with some of your clients. So first off, what is a hospice social worker?
A hospice social worker, you have to go through college and you have to have a degree, a college degree. A lot of people wonder about that. Like, do you have to have a degree? Do you just like sign up to be social? So it's actually a social worker role, and we are. My job is to be a support to patients and their families to help them with resources. And in a lot of ways, it's like a death doula, where my job is helping people prepare to transition from this life, and that's the primary focus of a social worker.
Excellent. And how did you get started in this? I know you said
Yeah,
you had schooling,
yeah,
but
yeah.
why did you choose the profession? How long have you been doing it?
So I chose the profession. I started back in 1996. And like 30 years, I've been doing this, and it was something that I just kind of fell into. I was working for a home health agency, and they said, "Hey, we have a couple hospice patients that we need a social worker, and we don't have a social worker on board. Do you mind seeing them and just seeing what you might be able to help us with?" My very first patient was a young man who was in his 20s, and he had been in the military, and he had served overseas, and he had contracted AIDS. And and then he was dying of course, of the symptoms and illnesses. And he was married and was living with his parents. And it was they were a very religious Catholic family, and it was a very shameful thing for them. And they were very intense. It was like, I thought, what am I doing? I don't know, have any idea. But I went in and was able to get rapport with the patient and his parents, and ultimately his wife as well, who was estranged at that time. And it became a very peaceful death, where really good things happened. And that sold me. I was like, this was amazing. And so I was seeing a few more patients, and then I said, I don't want to see home health patients anymore. I just really want to focus on end of life and the hospice patients. There's a concept that, and the very first case I ever had was a very good one, to demonstrate this, that the four most important things a person can do at the end of life is, there's four things that matter most. And it's to say, I forgive you. Do you forgive me? I love you, and goodbye. And that was done in my very first patient. And it was just amazing. And so I was really fortunate to have such a great experience.
That's
So that
fantastic.
sold me.
Well, it sounds great. And I'm sorry that you called it the four. What is it? The four what?
The four let's see.
What, four resolutions or the
No,
four
the four most important sayings
four most
that
important things? Okay.
that you
Is
can do.
so when that happened with your first patient, is or any patient, or are they patients or clients?
They're patients
They're patients. Okay.
because it's a medical setting, so we call them patients.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So for the patients, are the four things,
hmm
is that something they naturally go through, or is that something that you try to guide them through to help them at the end of life?
I think that it's something that people start to go through, and sometimes they need some of that guidance. And I say it just like that. Some of the most four important things we can do at the end of our life is these four things: I forgive you, do you forgive me, I love you, and goodbye. And so I will say that at times, directly like that. Other times I just help people or, guide them kind of through that process, and they don't necessarily know that that's what's happening.
Got it.
So, and then some people just kind of do that naturally.
Gotcha. Okay. And what a great thing, though. And they're not you're not asking them to make a list of their career accomplishments. You're not asking them to make a list of all the
Mhm.
stuff they bought in life. It's these are the four things that
Yeah, it
this
boils
is
down.
this is what's
Yeah.
important when at the end of life.
Yeah, those four basic things.
Yeah, that's neat. And you've experienced firsthand and sometimes secondhand some pretty interesting things with your patients. Particularly, they talk to people that aren't in the room,
Mhm.
or they'll recant a story that happened, the night or two before. They'll say, "Hey, DeAnn, uh, guess what happened?" And it seems to be that they're talking to people that aren't in the room.
That's true.
Do you
Yes.
remember the first time that happened?
Um I do. And this is interesting though. So my first kind of experience with that is actually like pre-hospice. And then it kind of helped and then it made sense when I was working in hospice, and I had a great grandmother that was very, very close to me. Or I was close to her, I should say. And I was in high school. I think I was like a junior or senior. I was a senior in high school, and she became very ill and was hospitalized. And we all went to the hospital, and we were sitting at her bedside. And when I say all, it was just actually my parents and myself. And she looked like she was, imminent and going to be passing away. And even the labored breathing, the apneic phases. And then she just kind of opened her eyes and she said, "It's so beautiful there. You guys need to really get yourselves together." And it was just like, that was really powerful as like a 18-year-old that, she had talked about like going someplace else and coming back. And she had mentioned she had two daughters that had passed away, and or actually three. So she had mentioned all three of her daughters. And so that, that planted in my brain, and early on. And then as I was working with hospice, a similar thing. I had a gentleman who was I would call him a very spiritual man. And he was very open and receptive to a lot of different ideas, ways of thinking, and very much able to express himself. Sometimes our hospice patients, because of their disease process or their medications that they're using, they can't articulate necessarily what they're experiencing. And he was very articulate and very mentally, cognitively with it, and able to talk about it. And he would talk about as he was getting closer, that he was, seeing his loved ones that had passed away, and they would like be present, but he still was not quite far enough, along that he could say that. And then as he was getting closer, it was like he would talk about kind of like he would kind of almost take like these little mini journeys and come back. And it was just very fascinating to me. And this was like, yeah, back in the, probably late 90s. And it gave me a lot to think about. And I would, just kind of ask him questions. And if it was scary, if it was peaceful, did it make him feel anxious? And he just talked about how peaceful it was. And it was a comfort to him as he was preparing to leave and transition. It was very peaceful to him to have these experiences. And he felt like it was kind of a little gateway because he was a little bit more afraid of dying. And so he felt like that was kind of a little gateway to help calm his emotions.
That's really interesting because I've read a couple books on near death experiences, and I've heard other stories, and it never occurred to me that you could go and come back, go and come back, go and come back. I always thought that like once you start going down that path, that's it. Like you're on your way.
Right.
But he had many experiences where
Yeah, he had more than one. And since then, I have had patients that they may not have had as many, but they've had one, where they're starting to go and come back. But he had had more than one
interesting.
experience.
And I wonder if it's maybe he had them because you said that he was afraid of dying. So
Mhm.
maybe just kind of dipping your toe in the water a few times
Yeah,
to know where what might happen afterward. That's interesting.
yeah, that's what I've often thought that, as I've processed it later, as years have gone past, that was kind of his way or his sign or how he was preparing and getting prepared to go.
That's interesting. And you had told me that a different patient, May 21st of this year, you went to a woman's house who had already passed away, and she was alone in the house.
Yeah.
Do you remember that day?
Yes.
Do you mind talking about it?
Okay. Yeah. No, not at all. It was really interesting. We communicate with each other through a Teams, app, and an aide had written on there she had just seen this patient just like 10 minutes prior to that. And I thought, great, I'm gonna go in and I'll go see her. And she was getting very close. And so she was a person that we were seeing daily because we knew that she was getting closer to passing away. But there were times that, we would think, okay, it's gonna be today, and then, 3 or 4 days would go by. And so she was kind of lingering a little bit. So I went to see her, and I walked in the room, and her TV was on. She was laying in her bed, and and I said something to her, and she didn't respond. I thought, oh, she's just, resting. I sat down next to her bed and then went to touch her hand, and it was evident that she had passed. So, what I had notified our hospice nurse who comes out, and in hospice, there's not like ambulances and police that come. What happens is, because we know that they have a terminal prognosis, a nurse actually comes out and can call the time of death, so that's what goes on the death certificate, and then the reason that they had passed away. So I had notified the nurse, and she was going to come out, and it took her about an hour-ish, just because of her location and some different things. And she also knew that I was with her body. And I remained with her, but before the nurse got there, then her family, her husband and her sister had arrived. And so I was able to greet them at the door, talk to them, and then they came in and they were able to sit and be with her body before she was taken to a funeral home. So I have had experiences like that, or actually with people when they are taking their last breaths.
That was my next question. Can you explain that? The things that you witnessed?
Yeah,
People.
yeah. So yeah, I've seen a lot of people transition. And I always say, if you notice, I say transition instead of pass away. And that's because of my personal beliefs. They're transitioning to I don't know exactly where. I don't know if everything ends at that point. I don't know exactly, but so I just say transitioning. So I've been with a lot of people who have been in those transition stages. I've seen some very interesting things. I remember one of, again, like in the mid 90s, a nurse said, you need to, and I was brand new into hospice social work, and this patient had had a disease process, and that I guess it's very rare that they have like these salt crystals that form like all over their face and body, and it looked like, you know, a movie where someone did makeup on this person to look like that. And you know, so I've been able to see some unique and different things. I've seen some very, very just peaceful passings or deaths, transitions where, you know, families are with a person and they're around their bedside. And, you know, they just take these, you know, last breaths. You know, people sometimes sing to their loved ones, they pray with them. One of my favorites was this lady was having a really, really hard time actually letting go. And so I said to her family, you know, is there music, anything that she loved to listen to? And they said, oh, she was a Neil Diamond fan. And I said, hey, let's put some Neil Diamond on. So we put some Neil Diamond on, and this lady took her last breaths to Neil Diamond Coming to America. And it was just the most fabulous. I mean, it was blaring too. And it was so fabulous because that was her way. So everybody has a different way. Some people might want these hymns and this, you know, a really quiet kind of, you know, dark atmosphere. And other people, it's okay with their life was about like families and grandkids, and there's kids running around and animals on the bed, and, you know, and that's their way. And so people usually they transition the way that they lived oftentimes.
Oh, that's really interesting. Has it ever been a situation where it's just you and the patient?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can
Yes.
you see a change, like on their face, like really the instant it happens? Can
Yes.
you explain? Can you talk about that?
Yes. It's amazing how immediately when a person's last breath is taken, they just look different. And you know, and I think in religious or spiritual, so you know, they talk about the souls leaving the body, and so that's what, you know, it's just a shell, and it does appear that way when people take their last breaths, because it's like they don't even, again, they don't even look the same, and you know, and it could be just like immediate. And so it's not like it's taken time for, you know, their body is starting um, you know, I can't think of the word now.
Slow down or
No, when you just a sec, you'll have to edit this. When you what not decompose. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyway, so when the body, yeah, is you know, it's done, it's, you know, the vessel, and it really appears that way when people pass away, or
that's
to make that transition, it really appears that
so it's just a second and then they're
hmm
totally gone. They're totally different.
yeah, yeah.
I've never been in the presence of someone who's passed like that.
hmm
But you call it a shell and a vessel, and
hmm
my mom passed 5 years ago. My grandma passed when I was 13, but my memories of that funeral are a little more vague. But my mom passed 5 years ago, and I remember going to visit her, and it wasn't her. You know, it was like a wax figure,
yes.
and it's interesting because you say, well, who are we? You know, who are you? I guess we are that thing inside that we can't see or touch because our bodies are not us. It's just, like you said, it's a vessel that's carrying us around.
hmm
And back to, you're not sure what you believe, but you think we go somewhere else.
hmm
Are you religious?
I used to be. I grew up in a home that I would consider Christian, and I did have a the, you know, growing up learning about God and Jesus, and the
Heaven,
Bible and
hell.
heaven and hell. Yeah. And but that has my life has changed. And I don't know if that's, I would consider myself more agnostic now, where I don't know that um that's all what you know, all the things that I learned growing up, if that's all true, and if that's what resonates with me.
Sure. Well, and it's interesting though that it seems like, and I don't want to put words in your
Yeah.
mouth, but we, all of us humans, do go somewhere else. I think is what
Mhm.
you said was you
Yeah.
believe, I think you called it transformative or
Transition.
transitional.
Transition.
Um, so that's interesting that there's not a God, but there's possibly something else,
Yeah.
which to me does make sense in the sense that if we're not this body, if we're not how we define ourselves on the earth, if we are
Mhm.
this thing inside that
Yeah.
vanishes in a second when we pass away, that there may be something afterward, which would be
Yeah.
comforting for anybody, whether they're agnostic or atheist or Christian or Jewish or whatever.
Right. Well, and I do find that with patients, the ones that have usually, I would say, a strong Christian belief system, they definitely, I think, emotionally and spiritually are more prepared for the dying experience or the transition because they do believe they have a lot of hope. And so when someone doesn't have hope and they just like, this is the end, and there's like, nothing, then those people seem to be very frightened, scared, sad, very, very sad because, they're, that's the last time they're going to see their family. That's a lot, and those people who feel like they're going to be reunited with family, etc., they have more hope.
So you've been with atheists or agnostics
Hmm.
that are scared to
Very scared.
when it gets to the point though when, and I guess you could only really answer this if you've been with them at the moment,
Hmm.
but as it gets closer, does everybody reach a peaceful state, or have you? I don't mean to be morbid, but
Hmm.
like as it gets close to the moment, have you ever seen anybody like just really terrified or really freaking out, or
Yeah.
is it really?
Yeah. Yeah. I have seen people that don't have any, haven't come to any kind of terms. And it is scaring. It's very frightful till the very end. Usually, though, because the types of medications that they have to be on to control their pain, their breathing, that kind of helps, that subside. But I have seen people also. I work really closely with chaplains and nurses, and the chaplains also that have, they have been called out for people who literally at the, very end that they're like, yeah, I think there might be something. I want to be, some people call it saved. I want to accept God is, and we've had chaplains that have gone out and done that on deathbeds. So,
Well, that's good. And everybody has that option to have a chaplain, whether regardless of their
mhm.
religious beliefs.
Yeah, chaplains in hospice are to be non-denominational, and they're a spiritual support. And the goal in everything is you meet the patient where they're at. And it's not our job to change their minds or change their belief system. It's meeting them where they're at and supporting them in what they believe and what they want for their end of life story.
So you've been doing this for 30 years and you said it's very rewarding. You said right off the bat on the first case you knew this was for you. What is difficult about your job? Whether it's emotional or whether
Mhm.
it's scheduling or
Uh-huh.
what anything like what
Uh,
I'm sure it's
yeah.
not 100% fun,
Right.
rewarding all the time, but
Right.
what are some of
Right.
the challenges that you have?
Um, Some of the challenges, scheduling can be tricky. That is really a real thing because you really have to prioritize. So, like every day, you look at, I have to really prioritize how patients, where they're at and what their families and what their needs are, because it can change so rapidly. And even in the middle of my day, it might change. And, so and so, something is happening and they need you now, or they're getting ready to pass and they don't have a funeral home. Can you go and help them? So you have to be very flexible, and you can't be married to a strict schedule. That just won't work. So that can be challenging. Sometimes people, families, often we kind of joke in a weird way that families sometimes are the more difficult one than the patient, where we can take care of their medical issues and take care of them, their physical needs, and their emotional needs, and oftentimes families can be a little bit more challenging. Um, and so that can be a hard part of a job, whether they're not accepting, whether they're expecting something different than what's happening. If they have this, scene in their mind of or what they think death should be like, and it's not like that, that can be challenging. And then, there are patients occasionally that can be challenging with their behaviors and, or things that they're doing and trying to problem solve how to make it more peaceful for their caregivers as well. So I had a challenge, or I would call a pretty challenging case just this week, Monday. This person was actively dying, and her family was at her bedside, and they were very hyper vigilant to the point of having a stopwatch and watching her breaths and looking at the books, and okay, she's supposed to pass away if they're this long, and we're trying to explain everybody can be a little bit different, and she would just like at different times just be moaning and groaning and even like indicating that she was in pain. So we would give pain medication and she would get comfortable, and then the family would panic and they would like, open your eyes, mom, open your eyes right now. And then so she's like trying to, she would finally get in a peaceful state and probably could have passed, but they would do that, and then she would try to open her eyes for her kids, and so she would like do it for a little bit, and then she started having would get in pain, and so they just wouldn't let her be at peace because they weren't comfortable with what they were watching. So it was a lot of support and education to them, like this is okay, this is what she needs to happen. She needs to be able to close her eyes. It's a natural thing. A lot of people also go through the difficulty of, we're nurturers, and human nature, like when you have like say you have a wedding, a funeral, a party, a get together, there's always food. We feed people. Someone's grieving, we take a casserole to them. So when someone is dying, their families want to feed them, they want to give them water, they want, because that's what our bodies need, and that's what we're kind of culturally used to. And their body's shutting down and it becomes a foreign substance to it, and their bodies reject that, and they'll choke, they can't drink water. Water's one of the most difficult things to drink, a clear thin liquid. So it's so so it's a lot of education and supporting the family that that's okay, and that they're doing still a good job without doing it. And you'll see that especially in different cultures of people that really, really they want to feed their loved ones, and it's just it's not something that their body's shutting down, and it's naturally saying I can't do this anymore. And then also people with like Alzheimer's and dementia, oftentimes they can literally go back into a fetal position. And I have seen that a few times where they, at the end, they literally curl back up into a ball, more like a fetus, and pass away like that as well. So they like make that full transition of, losing their memory, their ability to speak, their ability to eat, drink, swallow, back to a fetal position.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um, and overall though, you're happy with the career, and it's a lot
I
more rewarding than
Yes, yeah,
dealing with the
yeah.
family members. And
Oh, yeah. The rewards are so fabulous. I have the opportunity to meet some of the most unique, great people, whether, it could be a woman who was a homemaker, and she was a fabulous homemaker and raised 6 very successful kids and ran, a great household, to someone, who has been in the military and has been a war hero and is able to share those stories, to, people who have done political things, or even financial things to help universities, etc. So it's amazing the type of people you meet. One of the Can I tell you one story? Okay, so
any story, all stories,
one
every
an
story.
interesting. We had this patient, and excuse me, He came to us and we were referred to him, and he was in a skilled nursing facility, and he was homeless. And he had been on the street for many, many years. And he was originally from New York, and he had moved to this state. And he had come here for some different reasons. And he was able to get on some public assistance. And he had, so he had a little apartment, and he had some assistance to get like food, stamps and help, etc. He chose not to live in it, and he would still live on the streets. And his rent was being paid every month, and he would still do that. So he had mental illness going on, and he had had a past life, previous in his younger years, a lot of drug use and abuse, but not, at the stage that we were involved in his life. So here's this man in this skilled nursing facility in a room, and he's this older African American man, and he will not take off any of his dirty clothes, boots, and holding a bag tight on his lap in a chair facing the door. And he was very resistant. They would bring his food in, and he didn't want to eat it. He was saving it in his bag. And so these types of behaviors went on for quite some time. But when we're like thinking about it, this guy, on the street, you're saving food. So when the time comes that you don't have any, then you're going to eat it. One of the reasons we found out that he didn't want to lay down in his bed or sleep is because in public parks, if you're sleeping on the bench, then you can get cited. But if you're sitting and awake, then you wouldn't get cited. So he was used to just trying to sit up and be vigilant. And so it took a very, very long time. I mean, we're talking months, that eventually we got this gentleman that he got a haircut. He was in clean clothes. He laid in his bed. He ate his food. He took off his shoes that, were holey and dirty. And so we got a hold of a family member of him finally back in New York. We did some searching, and we were able to get a hold of his sister. So we're talking to her. And we're like, tell us a little bit more about your brother. And so she said that in New York, he went to Juilliard, and he went on a scholarship, and he was a piano player, and he traveled all over the world playing the piano. And he played with, at one time, with the Don Ho, the Hawaiian singer, his band. But he toured around the world and was a piano player. And he had suffered a mental break at some point. And she said that's when then he just turned to living on the streets. And again, even though he did have the capability to go live in the apartment that was being, paid for. It was simple and things, but he preferred that was, for whatever reason, his comfort. But it was so nice to see this man, the end of his life, just so beautiful in the sense that, he was clean, he was taken care of, he had food, he felt emotionally, physically, and spiritually safe. And it took, it was probably at least a year. And then he was able to pass away with such dignity and grace. But this homeless man that we found out actually had been on a Juilliard scholarship and was quite the musician.
It's amazing what we find out about people's past.
Yeah.
Even at younger ages, that, the things that have happened, like, because we have pretty full lives. So we don't really think about it because we're just always in the moment thinking about the next moment.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really fascinating. And after 30 years, maybe it's different.
Uh-huh.
Do you get emotionally attached to some of these people? I guess you can't help it sometimes, but at the same
Right.
time, you know that it's limited. I don't know. How do you cope with that? How does that work?
That can be a challenge. And I find for myself, and doing this for so long, the people that burn out really quickly are usually the people that have a hard time setting some boundaries. So, and boundary sounds kind of firm, but it's simple things like certain hours are to myself. I'm not going to address patient client needs. Um, there's people on call during certain hours to do that. I need to preserve that time for myself. Um, but you do. Sometimes they might remind you of a family member. You just might have some common interests. And so, you just click in a different way and a different level. And that can be challenging. But you also know, I mean, pretty much everybody I meet is going to be gone
Soon
soon.
ish.
Yes.
Soonish.
Yeah. Soonish. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're going to be gone. And so you kind of, after a while, I just kind of have that in my mindset. And so, I keep that in the back of my mind. But again, and there are times though that you cry with your patients and families, you laugh with them. There's times that, it's more, you get in your car and you break down, after being in a house, or you get home and you just want to release that. I'm really lucky too, though. So where I work, we do provide support group for the staff. And actually, I'm the one who facilitates it. So sometimes I'm like, wait, I need to do some more things for myself because I facilitate it for our staff members and we do a thing of real reverence. We read the names of the patients that have passed away in like the last month. And then it gives the staff the opportunity I facilitate so they can talk about maybe lessons, maybe sad things, maybe happy things, funny things, and helps them process the passing of um, the patients. So that's how I cope with
That's
it.
how it's. So you can compartmentalize between hospice social worker and kind of part-time
Yeah,
friend and
yeah,
but yeah, I mean I guess you would get a little bit emotionally involved sometimes.
yeah. You definitely do. And like I said, there's different stories like the homeless. I mean, he pulled at my heart. I just because you could just see there was a wounded soul. I mean, this person was wounded and he wasn't going to share that with anybody. And he was so, private and internal. And so, there are times that it does, and you think about it and you think, and I'm the type, what can I do to help these people? And because you go into this field because that's kind of your nature, your disposition. And so, but then you also have to protect yourself.
Yeah, sure. Since you do believe in humans having a transitional state, are you afraid of death yourself?
No, I'm not. Just because I have seen it just be so peaceful and so calm. I'm not afraid of dying. Oh,
Um, how about before you took the job, like when you were in your early 20s? I guess when we're in our early 20s, we don't think about death too much.
yeah, yeah.
Or have you always felt that way, or do you really feel
Uh,
that way now because of the
I think I
work that you've
feel
done?
much more so. Yeah, much more calm and accepting and not afraid of what the dying process. Because I think also just the dying process. People are afraid what that looks like and what that's going to feel like, and so I think that seeing that, people often there's like this paranoia about morphine and you know um, medications that those are going to kill someone. And no, when I see people so peaceful and calm and their pain relieved or just their breathing more relaxed so that they can just peacefully slow down their respiratories naturally slow down and then they pass. It actually can be, I've said, it's actually very beautiful and it could be a very spiritual experience, just like having when you watch someone give birth. There's it's you often you cry, you're excited, there's a gamut of emotions. And when someone passes away, I think that there can be joy in the sense that they have lived a good life, they have fought a good fight, whatever. And then there's, sadness. There's just all these mixed emotions, but can be a very beautiful, beautiful thing as well. As warped or morbid as that sounds, it can be really beautiful.
Wow, that's really interesting. You had told me about a man in July. He was alert and
Hmm.
oriented.
Oriented, alert and oriented.
What does alert and oriented mean?
So, alert and oriented in the medical world, it's person, place, and time and situation. So, he had all of his faculties about him. He knew completely what was, going on around him. He was the person still making all of his own decisions. He was completely aware.
Okay. And then you put him on the STARS program. What the STARS
Oh, okay. So that's specifically for the hospice agency that I work for. And it's an acronym. And shoot, I'll have to tell you, look that up and tell you later because I was going to look it up and I can't remember what the exact acronym, ac, uh, acronym stands for off the top of my head. But it just means for us that we're going to increase our level of care. So we're going to have a nurse see him every day. We're having a CNA see him every day. We're having a chaplain and social worker see them every 24 to 48 hours because we know that they are in their very final stages and that they will be transitioning at any time. Um, and we can go back to talking about physiologically what we expect. And sometimes, yeah, that can be different. But that's what the stars, when you look at all the physical symptoms, it's like they're going to pass within, hours to days.
Okay. And I think you told me he was the one that was very close to passing
Hmm.
or transitioning.
Yeah, either way, yeah.
And he fell asleep and his wife shook him and woke him up. What? There was something going on
Oh,
there.
yeah. So he told the nurse the next day that he and his wife were laying in bed, and he said that he made that transition. And he said that he was observing from a different vantage point his body and his wife. And he was just like in this real peaceful, calm feeling and state. And then his wife reached over to his body and could feel that he wasn't breathing and was like shaking him and asking him to come back. And he said he did. He said, I couldn't leave her. And so he and his wife had dementia, and that was one of his biggest concerns is what was going to happen to her afterwards. So then we had a family meeting. We got things in place and made plans for what's going to be next for her. And so then the next time that happened, he did pass. But he, the next day he was still able to tell the nurse about his experience that and we all myself, the nurses, we all very much believe that in what he was stating, just because he mentally wasn't uh, compromised.
Well, that was going to be my next question too. Is you said that the staff believed that that's
Hmm.
what happened to him. Have you ever had a situation where somebody tells you a story and it just seems too unbelievable? Like, I can't imagine that somebody at that stage of life is going to start making things up,
Uh-huh.
but I suppose it's possible. I mean, do, I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
has anyone ever said a story like that and you're like, nah, man, I don't believe you.
yeah.
You're crazy.
Actually,
You're crazy.
I don't call him crazy, but
Oh,
no.
sorry.
So
The dumb host will call him crazy.
yeah. So yeah, I actually had a person that she was likely Munchausen syndrome. And so for those of Munchausen syndrome is when people make themselves sick for attention. And so you hear like Munchausen by proxy where parents like poison their kids. And so this lady would come up with ailments and she, for attention purposes. And every time we were noticing that she was chronically ill, and it was with all these things that some were real, some valid, some weren't. They were very questionable. She would say she had cancer and we couldn't find any evidence or medical, documentation or whatever that she had. And so if we would say, we think that it's time that you actually graduate from hospice, you're not needing this level of care, then she would fall or she would say that her heart was starting to, she could feel her heart doing unusual things. And she was very knowledgeable. And she was one that would, was always searching. She was a woman in her 50s, a paralegal, bright, was able to really research. And so she would come up with these other things. And so we really, really, and our medical director, we really felt like, and she'd been on hospice in many states, several other states. And come to find out that was kind of a common thread that people, that she likely had Munchausen's and was exaggerating or making up some of the illnesses.
Well, there's that, and also though, like making not do you ever feel like anyone's making up a transitional story?
Um, I haven't experienced one yet that I've heard someone make
So
up.
the
Yeah.
vibe you get from a lot of these people, whether you witness it personally or
Mm-hmm.
you hear about it later, your gut feeling says that this is what they experienced.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, because I think they're just so genuine about it, and I think that and I'm kind of Pollyanna. I always look at the best in people, and and people have the best intentions, and so yeah, I haven't had an experience where I felt like they have been making up things for as far as a transition.
And again, it seems like at that stage in your life, you're not going to be playing those games anymore.
Yeah.
Like who's your audience?
Yeah, right.
The hospice staff.
Yeah, or their
Oh, I got
family.
one over on them.
Yeah, or their family that they're
Yeah.
teasing. Yeah, I haven't.
No,
Yeah,
that
had
makes
that.
sense. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Tell me about the lady this past summer. She had dementia.
Mhm.
All she would say is, "I love you."
Mhm.
But then something happened where she got some clarity. Do you remember that?
Yes, yes. She would say, so she's dementia, bedbound, can't eat, drink, feed herself, can't do anything for herself. And so needs total 100% care. And she had one phrase, I love you. I love you. And, I'm going to tell about two different ones. And so this lady, her husband was on hospice. They were a married couple. And he came on hospice later. She was on hospice much sooner. And he had some significant health issues. Therefore, he became on hospice. And we put him, it was great. They each had a hospital bed. And we did them facing opposite ways so they could actually see each other instead of turning their heads sideways to look at each other, so they could see eye to eye, because that was really important. So we had their beds kind of moved together, and so that they were their heads were in opposite directions, so they could look at each other. And he would just always, she was just always his beautiful bride. And he was one of those other people. He was really alert. He knew what was going on till the very end. And
But she wasn't. She
but
had
she
dementia.
wasn't. She she was passing away from the advanced stages of dementia and Alzheimer's. And so he passed away, and the family was worried because she was in the room, and they're like, oh, she probably doesn't understand what's going on. And she just had this really clear moment. And she spoke to her kids, and she explained that she knew he was gone and she was going to be okay. And that it was all right and she'll miss him. And it was just, and I believe her family. I wasn't present for that, because they were telling me this, and they were just sobbing and in tears. And they were like, we lost our dad, but we got our mom back for just a few minutes. We just got our mom back for a few minutes. And then she kind of went back into her state of how she was, it was just like she could just say, I love you. And she actually that was last summer, and she actually just passed away a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
So it was almost a year in between their passing.
Did she have any other moments of clarity like that you know of?
Yeah, she did. Her daughter told me that one time she was sitting by her mom's bedside, and she was talking to her own daughter on her cell phone, and she was giving her daughter some advice. And then when she finished, she was like, "Hi, Mama," and talking. And she goes, and her mother referred to the information, or like that was good advice that you gave her, or something on those lines. Like she like could hear and understand what she was saying to her daughter, and she was like giving her daughter approval for her mothering, and her ability to help her daughter.
Wow.
And so, yeah, she did have, yeah, her family. She had some of those that were just like these little brief, and and that. It's kind of hard because sometimes that gives families hope, but then also for those, like, they looked at it as a gift. They had a gift, and sometimes we see that before a person makes that transition when they've had like a real, their cognitive state is really declined. Sometimes before they rally and they can have some really clear moments and say some things and do some things that and their families, again, it's a gift that they've been given.
Yeah, that's great.
So,
Was the you mentioned that you were going to talk about two stories. Was
oh
the
yeah.
was the other one where the husband and wife had celebrated an anniversary and there was a corsage and
So them,
is that
that was actually them. So
okay? Oh,
they
okay.
they had also they had their anniversary, and I kind of going back to this, I forgot that, yes. So they were facing, each other in bed and things, and they had one of the really big anniversaries. I can't remember which number. And so the family decided we're going to, and that was, again, he always referred to as bride. He knew their anniversary was coming up. So there was a big deal. She wore this, our aide put on a pretty dress, she had a corsage. The family got a cake for them. We got them both out of bed and in wheelchairs and up, and they celebrated their anniversary, and then he did transition 2 days later.
Oh, wow.
So he was able to be there and celebrate that. That was really important to him, to be there with her, and he did, and he made it for that.
That was perfect timing.
Yeah.
Um, and you had mentioned on your way up here, you said, I'm going to dress for work.
Yes.
So is this how you normally dress when you when you
Yes.
visit these folks?
Yes.
So you're not wearing scrubs, you're not wearing the nurse's uniform or anything like that,
No, no, and I try
but
not to wear black.
bright colors.
Bright colors. And so, and part of this is because, black's an easy, safe color to get dressed in. And my patients have always commented on the bright colors that I wear. And it makes them happy. I mean, they're, looking at maybe four walls and, the same people that are coming in. And so when when I'm wearing color, they just love that. And I have several that comment on it. And one day, like this summer, recently, I went to a patient, and the first time I met her, I was in this bright pink, and I think I was wearing like navy or something. She said, "I don't want you to come unless you're wearing your bright pink." So every time I go see her, I make sure I wear bright pink because it makes her really, really happy. So, but I do that. And then even like if you go into like, say, a memory care or a nursing home and you walk in to see a patient, it makes everybody happy. They just, they enjoy that. It makes them smile. And so, yeah, I bring them happiness through color too.
That's really thoughtful of you. Was that your idea or is that something all your staff does?
That was something that I do, but this is interesting. We decided our staff, the scrubs for nurses were black and our aides were black. And so this summer we thought, let's try something different. So they chose like four bright colors and said, here, we'll provide you, you pick out which colors and a certain amount of uniform or scrubs. So they did. And people are saying that our nurses and our aides are saying that patients are noticing it and saying something about it. So I just think it gives them joy and happiness. Just as, like if you were to look out your window and see pretty flowers or a gray sky, which makes you more happy? It's the beautiful flowers.
Sure.
So I think that, and it just feels upbeat, it feels positive, and because we have certain connotations with black, oftentimes we associate it with death. I mean, when you go to a funeral, what do you wear? Black. I used to work for a funeral home for a little bit, and yeah, I had to wear all black. I couldn't wear, any kind of color at all. And or embellishments or things. It's solid black. So
Well, that's great. I love that. That's nice.
yeah.
And you also said in our pre-interview, and I wrote it down,
Hmm.
there are times when physiologically a person should already be dead, but no one can determine the human will.
Yes.
Speak to that.
Okay. Yes. We have so many times that a person that everything medically, their blood pressure, their intake, their output, um, their ability to, exist really shouldn't. I mean, they should not be living. And, but I always, you can't determine the human will. So here's another example of recently had a patient, lovely lady, and she had all of her children with her at her bedside, and she was a great homemaker. She was very involved with her children, grandchildren, families' lives, and everybody's at her bedside. Physiologically, this was a situation. The nurse, went in and what we call our STARS program said, we're going to increase everything because she's imminent. It's going to be at any time, and we're talking hours. And so I went and met with this woman and her family, and they were saying, our brother's coming in from Denmark, and he's not going to be here till like midnight. And this was in the morning. And when I was there, the nurse came, and she was having very long pauses in her breathing. And they were like, oh, we just hope she can, make it for our brother to get here and say goodbye. When we walked out of the home, we were talking, and the nurse says, I don't think that's going to happen. It really, with as long as apneic periods as that she's having where her blood pressure is. And I don't think that's going to happen. So we were kind of trying to prepare the family for that might not be a possibility. So her son flew in like at 11 at night, got there by 11:30. Within 10 minutes, she passed away of him saying goodbye and seeing her. And so that was her will. I am confident that her will kept her there until she could see and say goodbye to her last child.
So you believe they can hold on a little bit for an event if they know someone's coming?
Yeah.
Like birthdays, Christmas, anniversaries.
Yeah, we
things like
see.
that.
Yeah, we see a lot of that. Like after, like we had this lady. It was her 100th birthday, and her family had 500 guests planned to come, and we're talking people flying from New Zealand, Hawaii, the Samoan. I mean, people were flying from everywhere to come celebrate this lady's 100th birthday. And we were like, okay. And again, we went in. Physiologic, she's going to pass. There was no way that this lady was going to make it a week to her 100th birthday. Well, she made liars of us. And the family, this was sad though. The family wound up canceling the party, but several people still came. And this lady rallied, and she's still alive today.
Wow.
And she turned 100.
Okay.
And
Is she still 100 or is she 101 now?
No, she's still 100.
She's 100 now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was like last month. So.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and she's like talking more, she's eating more, but when you walked in and when, again, physiologically, initially, she shouldn't have made it. And then I think she wanted to make it to that 100th birthday, and then all these people, and it gave her a new spark, and she's still with us.
That's fantastic. Is she still in hospice?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That may have happened with my dad. He passed away December 26th, 2022 at like 2 a.m. And he went to church. I don't know how deeply religious he was. He liked the activities at the church. He did the fish fry every Friday. They had a food pantry where they would take food to various people in need, I think once a week. So he did a lot of community service with his church, and he had a lot of friends there. And his wife, my stepmom, both went together. But I've often wondered if he waited for Christmas to celebrate Christmas, and then 2 hours later he's like, yeah, I'm going. Because he had dementia, and I guess he could have gone anytime, but
Well, even I think we see that even in dementia patients. I think there's an internal clock or something or an internal awareness. Because I even tell families that when they're like at their parents' or husband or wife's bedside and they're, oh, do they really even know we're here? Or, and the way that people respond, the patient, I think they're on a heart level, they know who people are and they know what's happening more than we give them credit for. So I really feel like that on a heart level.
that
They
even though the
do.
language and communication
Hmm.
is faulty, that there's something
Yeah.
that they know.
And again, for certain dates too, because usually people are talking around them about it, or they see decorations or whatever, or oh, it's East, yeah. And so I do think that people, on some internal level, on a heart level,
That the will is stronger than
yeah,
the body.
hmm,
Interesting.
yeah,
Speaking of the heart, explain what is broken heart syndrome.
it is now an official diagnosis, a broken heart syndrome, and we hear about when someone's loved one passes away, and then they pass away very soon after. And so it again, it's an actual clinical diagnosis, and people do it. And I'll have to look up the clinical term, and we can put it in here. But so we have had patients that has happened. That maybe their spouse was even their caregiver. They pass away, and then all of a sudden they take a turn for the worse. And then we come in and hospice even for them, or maybe not, and they have a sudden health event and they pass away. But oftentimes it is related to their hearts are literally broken. And people, I mean, when you think about people married 60, 70 years, um, that's who they identify with. They maybe lived 18 years, 20 years without that person. And literally the whole rest of their life has been with that individual. Their identity, their everything is
Their
associated.
routines. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you hear about that a lot. That
Yes.
one spouse passes away within a year, the other one's gone.
Yes.
That
It's very
that may have
common.
happened with my uncle. I think they were married over 60 years, and she passed, and I think within 9 months he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I not to get too metaphysical, but I've wondered if there's something within us that we almost make ourselves sick because we're ready to go, in the sense that they do have a broken heart, or they feel,
Mm-hmm.
there's not much purpose anymore. Their kids are grown, their grandkids are growing up, and my
Mm-hmm.
work here is done. So it's not like they get sick. It's almost like, not that they consciously make themselves sick, but their spirit is in such a state that they're ready to go. So that's why they get an
Yeah.
illness or something that is going to
Right.
help facilitate the transition. I don't know.
No, I do agree with that. I do think that I mean, we know that our mental state can affect our physical state, and I don't know if we were going, but I also am a widow, and so knowing from when my husband died a very sudden death, very unexpected death, you feel physical pain. You honestly feel when people say that your heart hurts, it really does hurt. Like it physically, like in the middle of my chest, it was hurting. My body was hurting. I felt like I had just been through a triathlon like every day. I mean, everything hurt your body, and I had to go to doctors because I'm like, my body's falling apart. And I know it was from the emotional and the spiritual pain that I was feeling related to a sudden, unexpected death, even if you're expecting them again when you've been together for so many years or whatever. So,
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your husband. Was that the event where you changed your religious beliefs?
yes,
Okay.
yes, it was. And for me, it was growing up, I had always heard, God will never give you more than you can handle. God will I mean, you hear that all the time, no matter what faith base it seems like, or whatever higher power, you can overcome this, you can deal with it. And when he died, I thought, no, no, um, this is more than I can handle. And if there is a God, then that God doesn't know me.
It's not a loving God.
It's not a loving God. That God doesn't know me. That God doesn't know. I can't handle this. So that's when a lot of my thought process changed. And then I started, kind of going off on, different tangents about, if there's a God, why would he allow children to be abused? If there's a, that's supposed to be all knowing and can do miracles or stop things from, if that's the case, why would a loving God allow these, wars to happen, traumatic events, a broken heart, whatever. So that was when I made a major transition in my belief system and thought, I don't necessarily know that there really is a God per
Sure.
se.
Well, and it's still interesting that despite that belief, that it seems like every experience that you've had with your patients where they're transitioning, you believe that they are. So that's and a
Yeah.
belief in God doesn't necessarily equate a belief in an afterlife. They could be two separate things.
Right. Well, and if there is an after, I mean, does it have anything to do with God? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, it could be, yeah. If you die, I mean, does that mean that you go into another, reincarnated into another? I mean, it could be, or when you, transition, it can mean that transition can mean a lot of different things. So I don't know that it necessarily has to do with
With a
God,
creator.
though. Yeah,
Sure.
a
Sure.
creator. Yeah.
Has there ever been a situation with a patient when you're with them, either just the two of you or the families in there, where the patient starts talking to somebody in the room or tells you to move out of the way because
Yeah.
there's someone behind you?
Yes, that happens very often. And the lady I was talking about, where her family's like, "Open your eyes," kept referring to Bobby's here, and I want to, and she was referring to him, and that was her husband's name was Bob, and he had passed away previously, and she was talking about him being present. I had another lady that I entered her room, her family's at her bedside, and again, she was a person with dementia, pretty confused, but she was having a really clear day and able to and give motherly advice to her kids. And I'd been to, have seen her multiple times, but it seemed like she really connected that time, like kind of like, I know you're someone familiar and that has cared for me or whatever. But she was like, you need to move. You're in her way. And she is like motioning with her hand, like I'm standing in front of a woman that she's seen. And so I said, I moved and I said, is this better? She said, yes. So I have, yeah, been where many times where they have, maybe it's a child, it could be brother, sister, parent, um, people that have passed before them that they are seeing or feeling their presence.
Any pets?
Um, I'm trying. I think that they're
Because they say all
no,
dogs go to heaven.
yeah, no. So this is the weird thing. Not necessarily patients that I can't remember specifically, but and you might need to edit this.
We're not
So
editing anything.
I went I went to a medium after my husband died. And I'm like, I'm going to go to this medium and, see what, and she described my husband to a T. She didn't know me from Adam. And she talked about his dog that had passed away. And then she talked about another. And she said he was with dogs and described them as his dogs that had passed away before he did. And one that after he died that I had his dog that I had to put to sleep. And she described his dogs. So that was a situation where a medium described my deceased husband as having his dogs present with him.
Okay. But you haven't heard anybody like that you were in the room with and,
Uh-uh.
there's Fido or
Yeah, no,
nothing.
no. But I do, I mean,
I
there's a
guess they're
bit,
lower on the list of
this,
importance. I mean,
I
you'd
know,
rather
but
see
yeah,
a parent or a spouse or a brother or a lover.
yeah.
More, I mean, you love your pets, but,
But they always greet you when you come home, so they might greet you when you're like
when you get
leaving
there,
too. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
true. Yeah.
So but I haven't, but I mean, there's things like there is a actual animal hospice as well. And, so yeah, I do think that all dogs go to a good place. They're such wonderful.
All animals,
Yeah,
all living things have some kind of spirit, maybe.
yeah, I do. Because I even had my dog pass away recently. And again, I had just gotten home. I decided to leave work early, kind of impromptu. I just like had this gut feeling I need to go see her. And I got there and she kind of looked at me and was wagging her trying to wag her tail. And I picked her up and put her in her bed and I was sitting next to her and I looked at her and she just looked different. And again, it was just like she died and she even looked different. And then I was like, it was easier for me to take care of her body and to take it to go get it cremated because I was at home, and so I thought, "Ugh, how am I going to be able to do this?" But then it was kind of like it wasn't my dog anymore. It was just like again, kind of a shell. So
That's interesting. You had that feeling and then you went home and you were there
yeah,
when it happened.
yeah, I had this like real guttural feeling. I wasn't going to be home for a couple more hours. I'm just like I even told my work I'm leaving. I just need to go spend time with my dog, and that's kind of a weird thing to say or do. And I did it, and I was there for a bit, and she passed away.
That's a good thing you did, though.
Yeah.
And the dementia thing still fascinates me that when someone's in such a state that seemingly they don't know where they are, they don't know what they're saying, then sometimes they'll have clarity. My dad had dementia, and I think it turned into Alzheimer's. I guess they're related, right? Are they? Or
Dementia is an umbrella, and then you have the different types of dementias and Alzheimer's underneath it.
okay, I think he had pre-onset Alzheimer's,
Okay.
or was it pre-onset dementia? I don't know. But anyway, got to the state where he was the other one, which is the worst one, maybe the
Mm-hmm.
dementia one. And he was living in Tennessee at the time, and I, my stepmom was, he had been sick for about 4 or 5 years, so we knew he was going downhill. And his last, I think, year and a half, he was in a facility, and it just got worse and worse. In fact, I went to visit him 2 months before he passed, and he barely registered that I was there, and that was hard because we were real tight and real
Mm-hmm.
close. But I remember her telling me after he passed that he had recounted to her that, and she went to visit him probably every day, every other day. She saw him a lot. And one day she comes in and he says, my parents stopped by. And my dad came in and said that he's ready to take me home. And he said, I don't know why my mom didn't come in. She was waiting in the car. And I think my stepmom was kind of like, what are you talking? Oh, I get it now. Like he
Mm-hmm.
got a visit and a week later he was gone. So I guess they can happen at any time that you see. It's not necessarily when you're laying in bed and you're feeling sick.
Right.
Like you could be out in the rec room and here come your
Mm-hmm.
parents walking in and talking to you.
Yeah, and that's true. Like I have a lady right now with dementia, and she is living in the home she was born in. So like she was born, raised, grew up there, and her parents passed away. She and her husband bought it and have been living in it for, so literally like, the majority of her life. And she keeps saying that she wants to go home, and her family is like, she is home. This is, she's always been here, da da da. And I think home means something different. And so, not the physical home that they were living in, because I have people in like a nursing home. Yeah, they say they want to go home. You could take them to the home that they had for 60 years and they're like, oh no, I want to go home, and it's not back to the nursing home. It's just, it's not, it's that other place where I think home, home is where the heart is. Home is where there's comfort, and so that's what I think that they're looking for. And so, like his parents coming, taking him home, that, his dad was going to help guide him
Yeah. Yeah.
and keep him safe um, and help him.
Yeah. That's
That's a
good.
beautiful story of your dad.
Yeah. Thanks. Have you ever been in a room with a patient and they say that they see someone or they're talking to someone and you feel the presence also?
I have. I
Do
have.
tell.
Okay, yeah. I have felt, and not, I've never seen anything, but I have, and when I say I feel, I think that just even like my body temperature changes, um, and it, and just the whole vibe, the whole, feeling. You can walk into a room and feel like there's tension, there's whatever. And so when, there's just a whole different feeling of like this, I would say very peaceful. And for me, my body gets a lot warmer and I can feel a different kind of warmth. And it does feel, and then when I've asked them like where that, person, if they're seeing them, then, and it's usually like when they're kind of close to me, we're like, oh, they're right there. And so, but I have, what I think is, yeah, is feeling the presence
For feeling a
of,
vibe or something.
yeah, that another, yeah, the people or the spirits that are there with them, comforting them, taking them, whatever it be. I have felt that before.
That's interesting. And I imagine after 30 years, you've
Felt it a
potentially
few times.
felt it a few times and had a
Yeah,
lot of instances.
yeah.
I brought a book. I read this a couple of years ago. And for the readers out there, uh, it's called After by Bruce Grayson. And it was really interesting, which actually is what made me think of this interview long ago, before I even had a YouTube channel, uh, to get to hear firsthand stories of people who see or hear other people do these things. And After is really interesting. This guy is a psychiatrist, and I assume he's still alive, but because I think he's in his 70s. He has over 50 years of being a psychiatrist. And near-death experiences wasn't even his thing. Like that was just kind of a side thing that just kept happening, that he would talk to patients and they would relay these events that happened to them. So he started documenting them when he was young, in his early 20s. So he amassed 50 years of people claiming that they saw things or went different places and then came back. In fact, there's quite a bit of a scientific angle to it. He discusses studies he's done and surveys he's done and how many people he's talked to. And what's really interesting is during the entire book, he never takes a side. He never says, I think these people are telling the truth, or I think these people are delusional. So he probably has an opinion, but he didn't put it in the book, I guess. And I hate to be the skeptical guy all the time, but a lot of times when you hear something fantastic, I'm a little skeptical at first because I kind of want to know what's their motivation. And I think, okay, this guy wrote a book about what he says is 50 years of these types of experiences. So what's his motivation? He's already probably made gobs of money as a psychiatrist. He's in his 70s. He's probably led a very happy, peaceful life. Like, does he need the money for the book? Does he need the attention and the ridicule? Because a lot of people are going to say, no, these people are delusional. It's the illness talking. So why would he write a book? So anyway, to me, as I was reading it, you were talking about people being genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was an interesting book. And for the readers out there, I'm going to do a brain space book review on that book. But it was really interesting. It's the second near-death experience book I've read, but this one was a lot more comprehensive, almost to the point where I was getting a little numb from all the scientific information. I just wanted to hear the stories.
Right.
Like, give me the story. Like, what did they see? What did they say? How did they feel when they came back?
Mm-hmm.
And he has a lot in that book, but he also has a lot of stuff about the studies he ran and, how long it took. And I'm like, okay, because I'm more of a concept guy. I'm not always a good detail guy. But anyway, good book. And I do have one more question for you before we start to
Oh,
wrap up. No, go
could
ahead.
I tell you one,
Of
thinking
course.
about the book?
Sure.
So I probably 2 months ago had a patient whose husband has written 2 books about afterlife experiences, and she passed away. And he was showing me his books, and he's like, now I have to do like another, I'm gonna have to start another one with her, just her death experience, but she didn't have a comeback. But he has written 2 books about people coming back.
Well, who's the author? Do you
Oh,
remember his name?
yes. And I have to find out if I can say that
Oh,
because
okay,
of
okay. No,
HIPAA.
no,
Yeah.
yeah. We can put it in the
Yeah.
comments of the video if
Okay.
he wants. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one thing I found well, many of the things in the book was interesting, but a lot of times when people would leave their body and then come back, they'd be pretty depressed because they've seen how great it is out there.
Hmm.
Like, it's not that they're not happy that they're back and they're seeing their family.
Hmm.
It's like they had such a profound experience wherever they went that they're sad that they're back here on Earth, which is interesting because, and of course, I'm speaking hypothetically, I've never had such an experience, but it would seem to me like, oh man, this is so cool. I can't wait to go there again. But I've still got my family and my loved ones and my dog and whatever else you got, your things. But a lot of people in the book are like, no, they're really ready to go. Like once they experience that.
I think that kind of even ties back to my original story with my grandma when I was my great grandma at 18. Yeah, she was like this. It was wonderful and beautiful. And yeah, I don't think her days or her years left after that were as fulfilling. And I think she was very, very ready to go and be back in that place.
That's interesting. Well, I'm sure she's there now.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I have one more question for you
Okay.
about your patients.
Sure.
You attended a wedding August 2024.
Yes.
That's a little bit unusual.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Yes. So I had a hospice patient that was transgender and was born a male and was a decorated military veteran and was the oldest person in the state to get a surgery top and bottom to become a female. And she had was ill, and when she was in the hospital, she was supposed to go on a date and wound up in the hospital. And so she had talked to this person, and they came to the hospital and kind of spent time with her, wound up moving in to be her caregiver, and she started hospice. So this is the beginning of their relationship as well. And so her partner was also a military veteran that transitioned from male to female. And one of the things that they was very important to our patient, they wanted to get married. And she was getting to the point that physically it was, she couldn't leave her home. So we had, I had talked, numerous times to both of them, and they did, and then they didn't. They were trying to see the benefits and then just really at the love level, that was really important to both of them to do before she passed away. So I worked with them, and we were going to have our hospice chaplain marry them, but for different reasons wasn't able to. So we got a Lakota Nation Pentecostal preacher, I guess, or priest to come and perform this marriage in their townhouse. So it happened that this person also was transgender and transitioned from a male to a female. And in the Lakota Nation, and actually most Native American cultures, a transgender person is highly revered. And if you have a transgender person in your tribe, I can't remember what they call it, but you want them to name your child, you want them to bless your child. They are very revered spiritually. So it was just amazing to have this person who had that, and then also the more traditional religious belief system and could marry and do all of that. So she came and performed a marriage ceremony for them, and myself and her nurse were there, and I think they had one friend, the lady who cleaned their house, was there, and it was, and so I got them each a tiara with a veil, a bouquet of flowers, and we had a very simple. I shouldn't say simple because the Lakota part of this person, she was able to. Only certain people can have eagle feathers, and she had an eagle feather and was able to do some different things and burn different types of incense, and it was actually pretty fascinating. So they were able to get married, and very shortly after, within weeks, the person who was on patient, or our patient on hospice, she passed away. And but again, that was so important. And I've talked to her wife since then, and her wife has no regrets about that. And it was very important to both of them. They had both been married in their previous lives, to women. One had been married 3 times, one had been married 7. And they said that was the only time that they had an emotional feeling about getting married, because they really were marrying their love. And so it was a
Wow.
really beautiful, pretty cool experience to see these people in, their 70s go through and find each other literally when, they missed a date because she was hospitalized. And so it was just really pretty special. And it was a great experience in hospice to have that. In another state I had worked, we had a man and woman who were both hospice patients that wanted to get married, and they had lived together for a number of years. And so our hospice chaplain married them at their, bedsides, basically. And then they passed away a few months later, and then a few months apart. So, you think that, oh, hospice, it's all, sadness. And there's some really pretty cool things. And that was just a really special thing, and that helped complete this person and help her get ready to make her transition, because she was so worried about if her partner, her wife, was going to have everything that she needed, and be taken care of at her time of death. And that was one of the things that helped reassure her.
Well, that's great. It's never too late to find love.
It's not.
And there's
Absolutely.
someone out there for everyone.
There definitely is, and this was one of
And there's
those
someone out there to marry you too.
Yeah, exactly. What are the chances? Like,
Yeah.
literally, it was I mean, it was, yeah.
Love finds a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
All right, DeAnn, well, thanks for coming in. Before I let you go,
Yeah.
we have to do one more thing. We have to do the speed round.
Okay.
All right. Now, you have to answer these questions as succinctly and quickly as possible.
Okay.
All right. You ready?
Yes.
True or false? Kevin Costner and Westerns go together like meat and potatoes.
False.
If you were to have a girl crush, I'm assuming you're heterosexual. You mentioned your husband.
Yes.
If you were to have a girl crush, who would it be?
Probably Sophia Loren.
Where do thoughts come from?
I'm gonna say heart.
Gordon Sims or Venus flytrap?
I don't know what Gordon Sims is, so I'm gonna say Venus flytrap.
All right. Is race biological or is it a social construct?
Race.
Race.
Social construct.
What is your proudest moment?
Becoming a parent.
If you could be a pizza topping, what would you be and why?
I'd be an olive because my grandma's name was Olive, who I loved so much, and I love olives, all different kinds. So I'd be an olive.
All right, good. And a rare pizza topping, kind of not a typical one.
Yeah.
John or Ponch?
Paunch.
At the end of the Little Caesars commercials, the Little Caesar guy says, "Pizza, pizza." Why does he say that?
To ingrain it in your brain that you need to go eat pizza.
All right.
It's or when they implant earworm.
Reinforcement or
There
something.
we go. Yeah.
How do we end war?
Love, kindness,
Favorite movie?
flashback.
Favorite book?
Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl.
Favorite TV show?
Gosh, I'm going to go back to childhood, Brady Bunch.
Favorite musical artist?
Oh, that's so hard for me. I'll just put 80s new wave because most of them.
Favorite hobby?
Concerts.
All right. Now this one's a little long, so hang with me, all right?
Okay.
Do you know what a blow-up doll is?
Yes.
Do you know what a real doll is?
I think so.
It's like a blow-up doll, but it's a high-end, lifelike, life-size
Oh, okay. Okay.
sex doll.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, got it?
Yeah.
Okay, question. Should we make real dolls of minors and sell them to pedophiles to deter child rape?
Oh. My gut was to say no, but if there were studies to show that it would deter it, by all means, go for it.
Every cloud has
It has not a rainbow. Every cloud has a raindrop.
a bird in the hand is
Something cute.
if it ain't broke, don't.
Fix it.
You can't have your cake and
Eat it too.
a penny saved is
A penny earned.
Charlie Daniels, Charlie Brown, or Charlie Sheen.
Charlie Brown.
What is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life is joy, happiness, connecting as a human.
Who is better at running things, free people or politicians?
Free people.
Punky Brewster or Hannah Montana?
Punky Brewster.
Your happiest childhood moment?
My happiest childhood moment would be my mom would take us on troll and fairy hunts in the forest. And I would say definitely we did it a number of times. So probably, whenever it clicked to me, oh, we're going on a troll or fairy hunt. That would be like a happiest moment.
True or false? Keep on Lovin' You by REO Speedwagon is the first power ballad ever written.
False.
Whole Lot of Love or Whole Lot of Rosie?
A lot of love.
The Backstreet Boys or the Jerky Boys?
The Jerky Boys.
Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin or Heartbreaker by Pat Benatar?
Oh, I'll go with Pat Benatar for this one, but I'm a Zeppelin fan.
Livewire by Motley Crue or Livewire by AC/DC?
AC/DC.
Magic by the Cars or Magic by Olivia Newton-John?
Oh, I'll take Olivia Newton-John.
I'm giving you all the music ones, as you can tell.
I love it.
2112 or Xanadu?
Xanadu.
Which Prince song do you like best? 1999, Purple Rain, or Something in the Water Does Not Compute?
1999.
Bruce Springsteen or Rick Springfield?
Oh, I don't like either, so I'll go with Springfield.
Metallica or Pantera?
Metallica.
Multiple choice.
Okay.
Taxes are A, too high, B, too low, or C, just right.
Too high.
When you're in a bar fight, who do you want as a sidekick?
Oh, I thought it was multiple choice. Who do I want as a sidekick? Um, I want someone who can fight and like be strong, muscly. So like a TV character.
Whoever you want.
Oh, I'll take John Cod Van Dam.
Jean-Claude
No,
Van Damme?
no. I'll change it. Patrick Swayze.
Pat,
Roadhouse.
he could fight.
He can fight.
He could
Yeah,
fight.
Patrick Swayze.
And he was lithe. He was kind of a slippery little guy.
Yeah.
All right, complete this sentence. I got a fever, and the only prescription is more.
Loving You. Isn't that a song? I think that's a song.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do you have a hankering for a hunk of cheese?
Oh, yes, I love cheese. I could be a cheesemonger in my side life.
All right. Did you have fun?
Absolutely.
It was great having you
100%.
here. Thank you so much for coming in, sharing your stories. And thank you for coming. Anything you want to say before we part?
I appreciate the opportunity.
And
And
we appreciate you coming.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, that's it. Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming in, and thank you for watching, tuning in. Thank you for listening. Remember, we have merch, the cool mini sticker that can go on your iPad or your forehead. The bumper stickers are cool. And the two-sided unisex Perfect Society t-shirt, very comfortable and fashionable. What size do you wear, DeAnn?
Probably an extra large.
Um, go.
Oh, right on. Yay.
So order the merch at everybody'shappy.com on the website. The top of the page says merch. And remember that we have a less than $3 profit margin on any merch that we sell, meaning the price that you pay, almost all of it is for our cost, because we want to spread the joy of the perfect society and a free society in the United States sooner than later. And leave a comment in the comment section if you've had an experience with someone who's crossed over to the afterlife, or you want to share your feelings about what DeAnn's talked about today. So just remember, don't be a crybaby. Like and subscribe and get creative. And thank you again for joining us. Thank you for watching. One of life's greatest mysteries is, where do we go when we die? Everyone has an opinion on it. Religious people say heaven or hell, atheists say nowhere, and agnostics shrug and say nobody knows. Ask 8 billion people and you'll likely get 8 billion different answers. So here's what makes this interview fascinating. DeAnn Jansen is a hospice social worker. She has spent 30 years with people in their final days, their final hours, sometimes their final moments. She's been at more bedsides than most of us will ever see. And here's the part that's perhaps most intriguing. DeAnn is not religious, and she doesn't believe in God. But she believes in an afterlife. Wait, what? DeAnn has witnessed, time and time again, patients speaking to people who aren't there, people who have already passed. She's seen the dying carry on conversations with someone on the other side of our reality. Not once, not twice, but consistently over 3 decades of work. Now here's what makes her perspective so interesting. She told us that after what she's experienced, it is easier for her to believe that there is some kind of afterlife than it is to believe that there is some kind of God, because she has seen proof of one and not the other. Let that sink in for a minute. A non-religious person who doesn't believe in God but believes in an afterlife, not because of faith, not because of wishful thinking, because of what she has witnessed firsthand, over and over again, for 30 years. Some of you are thinking, this is outrageous, impossible, ridiculous. I get it, I really do. But here's what we can't deny. DeAnn believes these events are true. She was there. We weren't. And she's been doing this work for longer than many of you have been alive. This is exactly why my In the Shadows interviews matter. We hear stories that challenge what we think we know. We sit with ideas that don't fit neatly into the boxes we've already built. Sometimes a conversation gives us more questions than answers. And you know what? That's a good thing. The best interviews don't tell you what to think. They give you something to think about. DeAnn's interview is a perfect example. I'm not here to tell you she's right. I'm not here to tell you she's wrong. I'm here to share what she shared with me and let you draw your own conclusions. This is what the perfect society is all about. Hearing different stories from different people, learning from their experiences, whether we agree with them or not. Because when we stop listening to people with different perspectives, we stop growing. So what do you think? Where do you think we go when we die? Share your opinions in the comments. I really want to hear what you have to say. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other.